For over 2 decades, I lived in fear of the night. Pills stopped working, sleep became a struggle, and exhaustion followed me everywhere. But everything changed when I discovered a simple truth. Sleep isn't something you force, it's something you rebuild, layer by layer. At 81, I sleep deeper than I did at 60, without pills, without fear, and without gimmicks. Here's exactly how I did it, so you can too. Part 1, Sleepless, Restless, and Growing Numb. At 81, I thought I had tried everything to get a good night's sleep. Chamomile tea. White noise machines. Lavender oil on my pillow. But nothing worked, not truly. Not for more than a night or two. For over a decade, I lived in a state of silent dread as bedtime approached. The house would quiet, the lights would dim, but my thoughts stayed loud. My body was tired, yet my eyes remained open, blinking into the dark. Doctors told me it was just a part of aging. Some gave me sedatives, others said I should stop napping or limit screen time. But none of their advice touched the root of what I was going through. And slowly, I began to feel like a stranger to my own sleep. Nights blended into days. Days blurred into a fog. The worst part? It made me feel like I was falling apart in secret, while looking fine on the outside. Part 2, How Sleeping Pills Slowly Robbed Me of Real Rest. For years, I leaned on prescription sleep aids. They were my silent crutch, just one pill after brushing my teeth, and I'd fall asleep within 30 minutes. At first, I was grateful. Sleep came, even if it wasn't deep. But then, I noticed changes. I began waking up groggy, not rested. I struggled with memory, with balance, with focus during the day. There were nights I didn't remember falling asleep, or even what I dreamt. Doctors rarely warned me of long-term consequences. But as I researched, I found studies linking sedatives to cognitive decline, imbalance, and even a higher risk of falls in older adults. More alarming, these medications didn't give restorative REM or deep sleep. They just knocked you out. It wasn't real sleep. It was sedation. And that's when I knew I had to find another way. Not a temporary fix. A real return to sleep, naturally. Part 3, The One Question That Shifted Everything. One morning, after yet another groggy wake-up, I sat with my notebook and asked myself something I never had before. What if my sleep problem wasn't in the night, but in the day? It hit me harder than I expected. I had spent years trying to treat the symptom, insomnia, without ever considering the cause. So I began to track everything. What time I ate. What foods I ate. How often I moved. What thoughts I carried through the day. And, crucially, how I transitioned into the night. What I found surprised me. It wasn't about a magic food or a supplement, though those helped. It was about building trust with my body's natural rhythm again. I had lost that rhythm through stress, screens, late meals, inconsistent light exposure, and over-reliance on pills. From that day, I began a new kind of journey. Not toward sleep, but toward readiness. Part 4, My evening was broken long before bedtime. The first thing I realized was that my nights didn't begin at 10 p.m. They began much earlier, around 3 or 4 in the afternoon. That's when the unease would settle in. My body would tense, my breath would shorten, and my mind would start rehearsing the night ahead. Will tonight be like the last? Will I just lie there again, hour after hour? What I didn't know then, and only learned later, is that cortisol, our body's main stress hormone, tends to spike in the late afternoon when we're out of rhythm. It's our system's way of saying, something's off. I began making changes here first. I stopped consuming any caffeine after 1 p.m. I switched my evening news for calming music. And I began dimming the lights in the house around sunset, to gently signal to my body that night was coming, not to start winding up, but winding down. These were small changes. But they gave my nervous system something it had been missing for years, a sense of safety. Part 5, The Surprising Role of Blood Sugar in Sleepless Nights. I never connected my eating habits to my sleep. I thought food was about digestion, energy, and nourishment, not rest. But then I began reading about the connection between blood sugar swings and nighttime cortisol surges. Every time my blood sugar spiked, from a sweet snack, late fruit, or even wine, it would crash later, often in the middle of the night. That crash would trigger cortisol. And that cortisol would pull me out of whatever shallow sleep I was in. It wasn't always a full wake-up, sometimes it was a racing heart, vivid dreams, or sudden alertness around 2 or 3 a.m. And I thought it was just stress. So, I adjusted. Instead of a sugary dessert, I began eating a small protein-fat combo at night. A boiled egg. A few almonds and chamomile. Sometimes warm oat milk with turmeric and nutmeg. I also moved dinner earlier, by 6:30 p.m. if I could. That gave my body time to digest before bed, rather than struggling to process food when it should be winding down. These changes stabilized me in ways I didn't expect. My nights grew quieter. Not just externally, but internally. Part 6. Why I stopped trying to fall asleep. This was perhaps the hardest, and most freeing, lesson of all. I had spent years trying to fall asleep. Counting minutes. Tracking cycles. Forcing relaxation like it was a task on a list. But one night, lying there in the dark, I said out loud, I'm allowed to just rest. That was the shift. I stopped framing sleep as something I had to chase. Instead, I built an environment where rest could find me. No more watching the clock. No more frustration if sleep didn't come right away. Just breathing. Just being. I started using a warm compress over my eyes. I added a calming scent to my pillow, sometimes lavender, sometimes frankincense. I played soft brown noise, not to block out the world, but to create a space that felt safe to do nothing in. It sounds so simple. But for someone who spent 20 years in a state of nighttime anxiety, it was profound. And slowly, sleep returned. Not as a prize I earned, but as a right I reclaimed. Part 7. A simple nighttime tea that changed everything. I never believed in bedtime teas. They always felt like something that worked in theory, not reality. But one evening, I made myself a warm cup of tea with lemon balm, chamomile, and a pinch of magnesium powder. No sugar. No honey. Just warm, earthy stillness. I drank it slowly, sitting near a dim lamp and listening to soft piano music. I wasn't expecting anything. I wasn't trying to sleep. I was just being. And to my surprise, I slept deeply that night, for the first time in months. After that, I began researching the herbs I had used. I discovered that lemon balm helps calm the nervous system by increasing GABA activity, a neurotransmitter that promotes relaxation. Chamomile has mild sedative properties and helps reduce inflammation. Magnesium? It plays a vital role in over 300 body functions, including regulating melatonin and easing muscle tension. That became my ritual. Every night. Same time. Same mug. Same stillness. And over time, my body started to associate that moment, the aroma, the warmth, the quiet, with safety and sleep. Part 8. The one mineral I didn't know I needed. Most older adults are low in magnesium, especially those dealing with stress or poor sleep. But no doctor ever mentioned it to me. When I added a low-dose magnesium glycinate supplement before bed, the change was subtle, but powerful. I stopped clenching my jaw at night. My legs didn't twitch as they used to. My heart didn't race when I laid down. I felt calmer, anchored. Unlike melatonin, magnesium doesn't force sleep. It supports your body's natural ability to relax. It helps regulate your circadian clock gently, not push it around with chemicals. Other minerals matter too. Potassium, from bananas or coconut water. Zinc, from pumpkin seeds or eggs. These supported the balance of neurotransmitters involved in deep, restorative sleep. But magnesium, that was the one I felt most clearly. Part 9. Light, my new favorite sleep medicine. It sounds odd, but light, not darkness, helped restore my sleep the most. For years, I had dimmed the lights late at night. But I never paid attention to how I began my mornings. Then I read this. Morning sunlight anchors your body clock. Nighttime sleep depends on morning light. So I made a new habit. Every morning, before breakfast, I sat by the window for 10 minutes. If it was sunny, I walked outside for 5. If it was cloudy, I still opened the blinds wide. That single habit began resetting my rhythm. By exposing my eyes to natural light within an hour of waking, my body began naturally raising cortisol in the morning, the healthy way. That made it easier for melatonin to rise at night. Less confusion. Less tension. More rhythm. Light gave my brain the clearest signal possible: you are safe. You are in sync. And slowly, without realizing it, I started feeling sleepy at the right time. Not groggy. Not sedated. Just gently, gradually, ready. Part 10. The thoughts that kept me awake for years. No one talks about this part. The way thoughts behave in the dark. During the day, I could distract myself with chores, conversations, errands. But at night, those same thoughts return like whispers behind closed doors. Did I call the doctor back? What if my heart acts up again? What if I die in my sleep? They weren't always loud. But they were constant. Like background static I couldn't turn off. And I didn't realize just how tightly my brain clung to them, as if being worried was my only form of being prepared. I started journaling. Not long, just a page each night. A kind of mental unloading before I laid my head down. At first, it was messy. Rambling, scared, repetitive. But over time, those pages became a doorway. A signal to my mind: you've said enough. Now you can rest. This one act, 10 minutes of handwriting, slowed my racing thoughts more than any pill ever had. Part 11. I stopped calling it insomnia. There's something powerful about how we label ourselves. For years, I had called myself an insomniac. It became part of my identity, like an old nickname I couldn't shake. But one evening, I said something different. I'm someone who's learning to sleep again. It may sound small, but it felt like I was releasing a heavy coat I didn't realize I was wearing. I also stopped saying things like, I never sleep well. My brain won't turn off. Or, I'll be tired again tomorrow. Words matter. And my brain listened. So instead, I practiced phrases like, tonight I'll rest. My body knows what to do. I am allowed to be still. These weren't affirmations. They were permissions, soft reminders that I didn't need to fight for sleep. Just make space for it. Part 12. Rebuilding trust with the dark. For years, I feared nighttime. I dreaded the silence. The stillness. The aloneness. But one night, I tried something different. I turned off every noise. No background TV. No hums. I opened the window slightly. I let in the sounds of nature. And I lay there, just listening. And something strange happened. I wasn't scared. I wasn't lonely. I was present. The dark wasn't the enemy. It was simply an old friend I had forgotten how to sit with. I began lighting a candle before bed. Not for brightness, but for ritual, to say, day is done. The world is quiet. You can be too. This simple practice shifted the energy of bedtime from fear to familiarity. And when I stopped resisting the dark, I found sleep waiting in it, quietly, patiently, like it always had. Part 13. How stillness became my enemy, and then my medicine. For a long time, I thought stillness meant sleep. So every night, I would lie in bed completely motionless, trying to force rest through inactivity. But the more I resisted movement, the more tension I felt. My legs ached. My back tensed. My jaw clenched unconsciously. It wasn't rest, it was pressure. Then I discovered something I never expected. Intentional movement, just before bed, actually helped me sleep. I started small. Gentle stretches. Nothing more than 5 minutes. A simple forward fold to stretch my hamstrings. Shoulder rolls to release daytime tension. Slow neck circles while breathing deeply. These weren't exercises. They were invitations to soften, not strain. And each night, my body began to remember. It's safe to let go. Part 14, the breath that put me to sleep. Breathing had always felt automatic until I learned how to use it. One night, I tried a breathing method called 4-7-8. Inhale for 4 seconds. Hold for 7 seconds. Exhale slowly for 8 seconds. The first time I tried it, I couldn't finish 2 cycles without yawning. It was like someone had flipped a switch inside me. What I learned is that slow, extended exhales activate the parasympathetic nervous system, the part of your body responsible for calm, rest, and digestion. It's the opposite of the fight or flight response. That's why I started using this breath pattern every night as part of my routine, sometimes while lying in bed, sometimes while sitting near my candle. I didn't try to fall asleep anymore. I just breathed. And sleep came. Part 15, movement in the day creates stillness at night. Here's something most people don't realize: sedentary days create restless nights. When I stopped moving entirely during the day, especially during my most sleep-deprived years, my body began to lose track of its own energy cycles. It wasn't tired, it was stagnant. That's why I started adding tiny, consistent bursts of movement throughout the day. A short walk in the morning sunlight. Standing stretches every hour. Light gardening in the late afternoon. Climbing stairs slowly instead of using the elevator. These weren't workouts. They were signals to my body: you're alive. You have rhythm. You're part of a natural cycle. The more I honored that cycle, the more naturally my body began to crave rest as the sun set. I didn't need to fix my nights. I needed to live my days differently. Part 16, I stopped chasing perfect sleep. I used to believe sleep needed to look a certain way. 8 hours. No interruptions. Fall asleep by 10, wake at 6. But as I aged, that expectation became a burden. Some nights, I'd wake up at 3 a.m. and feel panic rising, believing something was wrong, that I had failed again. Now, I understand, sleep is not a performance. It's a rhythm. And rhythms can have pauses. So I stopped chasing perfect sleep. Instead, I paid attention to how I felt during the day. Was I alert without caffeine? Did I feel calm when resting? Was my memory clearer? Was I able to feel joy again? Those became my real sleep metrics. Sometimes I sleep 6 hours. Sometimes I wake for 20 minutes in the night and go back to sleep easily. Sometimes I nap briefly in the afternoon if my body asks. But the fear is gone. And when fear left, real sleep began. Part 17, what sleep feels like now, at 81. There's no miracle moment. No single night that turned it all around. It was gradual, like the turning of a tide. Now, when I go to bed, I feel no dread. I light my candle. I drink my tea. I write in my journal or breathe slowly. And then, without warning, I drift off. I wake up around 5 or 6 a.m., sometimes earlier. But I feel rested. Not perfect, just rested. My thoughts are calmer. My balance is stronger. My skin even looks healthier. I've found that sleep is not just about nighttime. It's about giving your whole life permission to slow down, to release, to soften. And I carry that softness with me now, in how I speak, move, and live. Part 18, a quiet life, without dependence, without fear. Looking back, I wish someone had told me. You can heal your sleep. Even in your 60s, 70s, 80s, or beyond. You are not broken. You are not doomed to pills. Your body hasn't forgotten how to rest, it just needs to feel safe again. The noise of the world is loud, full of quick fixes, medications, and pressure. But real healing is quiet. It comes in rituals. In stillness. In rhythm. At 81, I sleep without pills. Without fear. Without needing to earn it. Sleep found me, not when I forced it, but when I finally stopped fighting it.